The first 10 years of this century, we have had three major crashes. In 2000 was the dot-com crash, followed by the 2006 real estate subprime crash, and then 2008, the banking crash. The question is this next? This is the giant crash of 1929, and every time I listen to those guys on CNBC, I call it bubble vision. They keep talking about the giant crash of 1929. I tell you what, it doesn't even compare to this one coming. So that's why I write and I speak, and I'm very concerned about our futures, our well-being, and the state of the economy.
But not long ago, I wrote that the best time to prepare for a crash is before a crash. The biggest crash in world history is coming. That got a lot of news. That's big news. The good news is the best time to get rich is during a crash. The bad news is the crash will be a long one, which is for me good news too. There's something about being old that is good. What I have is I've actually lived through history.
The S&P 500 is really the S&P 7, and it's being held up by Treasury Secretary Yellen and Powell. So there's no correlation between the economy and what Yellen and Powell are doing. I said one more thing is that I'm a little strange in that I like crashes. So this next crash is going to be really, really good, but it'll bring down gold, silver, Bitcoin stocks. But the good news is a crash is a good time to get rich. The big debate is there inflation or deflation? And if you look historically, what's happened today is the nominal debt to GDP is a correlation of M2, the volume of money, times the velocity of money. And the reason Yellen and Powell are scrambling is because they've expanded M2, so everybody thinks there's going to be inflation. But velocity of money, which is what Jim Records and I always talk about, the velocity of money is plummeting. People are not spending. So they pump all this money in, prices go up. Meanwhile, the Asians are catching up now. The ports are finally open. So it is transitory inflation. But the problem is we're stacked with this massive debt, and all it's done is bump up the stock market and real estate market. The money has not gone into the economy. That's the sad part. So the rich get richer, but the poor and middle class are getting poorer. It is tragic what's happening today. I don't know what it'll exactly be, but you can't keep printing fake money. You know, that's M2. And the velocity of money keeps dropping, but the debt keeps going up. So you and I don't have to go to Harvard to understand that's not good. This is going to be the biggest crash in world history. We have never had this much debt pumped up. Debt is the biggest problem of all, but that's called M2, money supply. And the debt to GDP ratio is out of sight. So when it comes down, which it brings everything down with it, and I want to give people the big picture. The reason I don't care for Yellen or Powell, because they're both Marxist. And when I say that, I get nailed. I will read you a quote from Lenin. Okay, this is Vladimir. He says, the establishment of a central bank, this is a direct quote, is 90% of a communizing of a nation. That's Yellen and Powell. And the other statement from Lenin is, and this is in manifesto here, the best way to destroy the capitalist system is to debauch the currency. I'd say it's desperate people doing desperate things. As you and I know, the stock market, like I said, it's not the S&P 500, it's the S&P 7. And the separation between the stock market and the economy has never been worse. I'm just disturbed because the money is staying only in the investor market. Every time the Fed does something, the Treasury does something, only guys like me get richer. But the money is not going into the real economy. They're not investing. They haven't invested for years in plant and equipment. So we have massive, massive unemployment and underemployment. And that's why I quote Lenin, the establishment of a central bank is 90% of communism. And the best way to destroy a capitalist system is to debauch the currency. That was in 1971 that Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. So in this book here, I kind of woke up in 1972 as a Marine pilot flying in Vietnam. And I went behind enemy lines in Vietnam looking for gold because it was illegal in 1972 for Americans to own gold. When markets crash, it's the best time to get rich. So I'm getting very excited about a crash coming because the better stocks will come available. Unfortunately, Michelle, there will be massive social unrest. That's what I'm more concerned about, because we have not reinvested. The Fed and the Treasury have only invested in the investor class. They haven't invested in the working class. And the working class is without jobs, without pay, without this. Their 401ks are going to get toasted. And that's why I'm more saying I don't like what's happening. I've tuned in to YouTube and all the financial markets 24/7. And that's one of the best things about technology. This COVID thing really pushed up technology. And I love YouTube. I listen to some of the most smart guys on planet Earth. And I was listening to Lacey Hunt, and he's talking about deflation. Then I listen to Rickards, and he talks about deflation. And Yellen and Powell, who work for the Fed and for the Treasury, they both worked for the Fed, which again is a communist organization. They'll say so in here. Time to wake up is what I'm saying.
You know, most parents say to the kids, go to school and save money and work hard. But in 1970, when I graduated from school, $1 million at 15% interest earned me $150,000 a year. Now, you could live on $150,000 a year back then. Another thing that's happening, when people's incomes go down, they become dependent. Now, the U.S. government tells us that poverty has been beaten in America. Well, maybe poverty has been beaten, but what has increased is the entitlement mentality. The attitude that the government and other people should take care of.
So anyway, the reason inflation is going to wipe out people is because the average person is a consumer. So everybody talks about, I want to, T-bone steak is this now, and gasoline's this, and toilet paper's that, and all this. But that's because Biden and company and the Fed are protecting the bankers. That's why I feel for the working class people. I think it's criminal that our school system is part of Marxism. There's no financial education in schools, and it's not a mistake. So I've been saying this since, my first book was, if you want to be rich and happy, don't go to school. This was long before Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But today we can see what's happening. And people are still saying, it's because the container ships aren't being discharged in Long Beach Harbor and all that. And I went to school. I can drive those ships. I have a third mate's license to drive ships and fly planes. But anyway, it's all BS. So the people who are complaining about inflation just know it's because the Federal Reserve Bank, the U.S. Treasury, which is Janet Yellen, who was also head of the Federal Reserve Bank, they're as corrupt as they come. They're communists. They're frickin' communists, and we worship them. This is what's sad.
The Fed should have let those guys fail, but they kept them afloat.
Every time they made money, they created more debt. They just created more fake money. And America comes down.
I suspect we might be heading into a depression
because they had to have that
with inflation.
Schumpeter's dilemma.
Some people
Plus
call it
Schumpeter, which
stagflation.
is that capitalism is destructive.
This one is
the whole
so
system
severe
is based upon if a dollar comes in, it cuts the numbers out.
No
and the
money.
collateral's going bad.
Drying
now.
up fast.
So that's why he
Biggest
says it's going to be deflation, not
system,
inflation. But the
system we
Fed has
cannot
got to
see,
keep
the
the
euro
illusion
dollar,
that
the
there's
euro yen, and all
inflation.
that. So inflation is up, gold prices are down, real estate's crashing. What else could we ask for?
With price levels continuing to spike, the Fed is no longer using the word transitory to describe inflation. U.S. consumer prices jumped 7.7% in October from a year ago, still hovering near the highest levels since the early 1980s. Food and energy are still spiking at a historic pace, which could give the Fed more reason to keep raising interest rates. It's a vicious cycle criticized by many investing veterans. And Rich Dad, Poor Dad author Robert Kiyosaki is one of the latest experts to sound the alarm. The famous author of the best-selling book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, has warned that the current inflation may lead to a greater depression. He added that real estate is crashing and foreclosures are up 700% from last year. Kiyosaki isn't exactly pleased with the current state of the U.S. economy. America has stopped producing products. We produce bubbles, he says, adding that we now have bubbles in the real estate market, the stock market, and the bond market. It also spells trouble for those who want to enjoy their golden years. When the bubbles burst, Kiyosaki says, the stock market will crash. So those relying on their 401k plans are toast. We don't have a retirement, our pensions are bust. Given his grim outlook, it's no big surprise that Kiyosaki is a fan of haven assets like gold and silver. Precious metals can't be printed out of thin air like fiat money, and they've been helping investors preserve their purchasing power for centuries. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has given investors a new reason to check out the yellow metal. While Kiyosaki owns gold, he first purchased the yellow metal in 1972. He prefers silver in today's economic environment. In a recent tweet, Kiyosaki revealed that he had purchased 2,500 American Silver Eagle bullion coins. To be sure, precious metals aren't shooting through the roof, but they've demonstrated their resilience in this broad market sell-off. The price of gold is down about 2% in 2022, while silver is up 1.2%. The author also criticizes President Joe Biden's decision to halt the Keystone XL oil pipeline, which he believes is a major reason energy prices are so high. We would now get into the video and listen to what Kiyosaki has to say about the concerning inflationary figures. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and leave your comments below.
You know, one day the school teacher said, yeah, I said, why don't we have financial education in school? And I was talking about, you know, the income statement and balance sheet, you know, basically a financial statement. You know, I always say my bankers never asked me for my report card yet. My banker wants to see my financial statement. And they don't know what a financial statement is. They say, yeah, but we teach economics. I said, which one? And they didn't know there's different economists, like Keynesian, Marxist, Malthus,
exactly.
Adam Smith, Ricardo. I mean, these teachers who are economists are more stupid than the students. I mean, they don't even know there's different economic theory. Well, I took a gold mine public, the richest gold mine in America. It's in Provo, Utah, went public July 8th, 2022. And our ore grade samples are through the roof, and we're going to take a NASDAQ next year, I think. So, and then I've been a gold bug since Vietnam. You know, I tell the story of I'm on an aircraft carrier flying flying a gunship for the Marine Corps, and I'm looking at this thing that says gold. You know, next thing took the dollar off the gold standard. So what does that mean? Because they don't teach us in school. So my co-pilot and I flew behind. It was enemy lines because the NVA was North Vietnamese Army had overrun the damn place. So we went behind enemy lines. We disarmed and walked through the village in Vietnam. You know, and all the people go, "What the hell are you guys doing?" He said, "Oh, we're unarmed. We're here as we come to buy gold." And so we walked up to the window. And the little Vietnamese woman with bright red teeth, you know, because he eat betel nuts, and she was showing us gold nuggets. And I'd never seen gold, and my co-pilot never seen gold. And because it was illegal. Remember, it was illegal for Americans to own gold. So he looks at me, I look at him, and he goes, "Is that gold?" I said, "I don't know, I thought you knew." And us two idiots are standing there in front of her. And so I tried to discount it. I think it was about $50 an ounce then, up from 35, you know. And I tried to get it down to 40, and she just smiled her bright red teeth, says, "Spot, spot." So what does spot mean? Do a spot on my shirt or something, you know? But I didn't know at the time, but when I got back to the ship, she educated me, this little Vietnamese woman, she educated me. Gold is money throughout the world. And why, you know why it's worth is because what we did in 2008, when the derivative markets came apart, and they just printed more money, was put this thing in a bubble. And the other thing too is globally, it's a quadrillion in derivatives. What people may not realize when you have a liquidity crisis, it's because they're finding out their so-called assets aren't assets. Because I'm backed up all the way with gold, silver, I have mining shares and all this, I have oil wells, I have beef, I have things the Fed cannot print. That's my claim to fame. I have no stocks, no bonds, no mutual funds, because I just don't like paper. After Vietnam, I didn't trust it.
Bubbles tend to pop, eventually. When they do, many people see their wealth take a significant hit. But large declines also create opportunities for those who are willing to buy the dip. The good thing about a bubble is when they burst, everything goes on sale, Kiyosaki says. During the financial crisis of 2008, the author started buying real estate at bargain prices. Based on how much real estate has gone up since then, it's fair to say that was a sharp move. So many job layoffs were seen during this period, and interest rates remain hiked. Robert says inflation is now a permanent thing, and the recession will only get worse.
Interest rates just go up a little bit, and I was at a big major bank right near my house in Phoenix, and the whole place was empty. Not from customers, but their mortgage department is cleaned out. And you know, Twitter just laid off I don't know how many millions of people. Amazon's laying off people and all that. That's what that means. So we can talk about interest rates and percentages and all this stuff. But the thing is, as we said, what goes up must come down. I think we're in a serious, almost a Weimar Republic, what brought Hitler to power type of situation where it's so goofy. And I'm concerned for everybody too, because they're calling for riots in Europe. China's in serious trouble, because when we slow down, they slow down. So this is not just a U.S. thing. This is a global challenge we're coming up to. And one thing I want to say about inflation, it's permanent now. Do you know what I mean? When they messed with oil, they did it. So I'm going to close by this, saying this, Chairman Powell, he just said in his last speak, he used the word pain 3 times. And he used, they're using words right now trying to warn you, and Bert and I are doing our best to warn you. Yeah. You don't have to be a victim of this whole thing. Yeah. This could be the best time of your whole life, but you've got to choose who's putting the information into your head. Saying that I have all the time, it says, don't teach pigs to sing. It wastes your time and it annoys the pig. And I can't believe how many pigs are. They go, oh, don't worry, the Fed's got my back. I buy the dips. I got a 401k. I have a government pension. And those are the things that are going down. And this inflation is now systemic. It's now permanent. And the crime family known as the Bidens, they did that in 2020. What year am I in? 2020, when they got elected, they took off the Keystone XL pipeline. The price of oil went from $30 to $130 a barrel. So I'm selling oil at that time at $30 a barrel because I don't buy oil stocks. I buy the oil in the ground. Went from $30 to $130 a barrel. I almost voted for Biden after that. Thank God. He made me a richer man. But I also realized what they're doing, what these academic, democratic, liberal greenies are doing, is the poor will always be poor. I mean, this says in the Bible, the poor will always be amongst us. But by raising the price of oil, they took out the middle class. That's intentional.
Kiyosaki points out that this is not just a U.S. thing, but a global crisis that will affect everyone from China to Europe and the whole world, and the best thing for anyone to do is to prepare before the crash comes. What do you think of buying precious metals as Robert Kiyosaki advised? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Also make sure to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching.